Welcome to Confessions of the Pickup Artist, secondhand stories, swipe culture chaos reported live from the school pickup line. Now, normally these are anonymous stories from the vault, but unfortunately, today's disaster is one of my own. It involves the man who eventually became my husband, a rooftop party in Kitts Beach, a destroyed chiminea, and what can only be described as criminal levels of gin consumption. We call this one Another Man, Another Liability.
Confessions of a pickup artist. Cat secondhand stories. Swipe culture chaos while killing time in the school pickup line. Although behavior under review, hate the bar, get slow. Although behavior under review, hate the bar, get slow.
Before we begin, I should just say that sometimes the universe sends us signals. Sometimes those signs are subtle. And sometimes those signs are a 24-year-old man falling directly into a 4-foot terracotta fire structure after consuming industrial amounts of gin. So let's rewind a bit. I'm 29 years old. I'm living in Kitts Beach in this amazing townhouse situation. 2 floors, rooftop patio, summer in Vancouver, peak optimism. Now I'm living with this gem of a gal. I actually met her years earlier when I owned a surf school in Byron Bay, Australia. And we stayed friends. And when I came back to Vancouver for wedding season and summer fun, I moved into her townhouse with her. Now at the time I was dating this guy. He was a little younger, like 5 years younger, which didn't seem like a big deal. But I guess at 29, dating a 24-year-old, you realize you have very different life experiences. But you know, it wasn't a big deal breaker. I liked the guy. So one Friday night, I decided to have a party. Not just a casual few friends over, like a real proper party. And so I invite the guy that I'm seeing, and he brings his best buddy. He goes by Cooter Cutter. Okay, so just to paint a picture. That could be a whole other episode. They show up and they're pretty lit. You know, not just a little tipsy, not a little loose. No, they're pretty wasted, man. These guys show up carrying a 40-pounder of gin, like explorers returning from war. And they put it down on the table and they continue to drink. And that should have been a little bit of a red flag at that point, but whatever. I'm also having a good time. I've had some drinks. So everyone's on the rooftop. It's a vibe. And then suddenly this random man walks upstairs. Nobody knew who this was, and no one knew who invited him, actually. And this guy looked exactly like Tom Selleck. I mean, if you told me Tom Selleck was in town shooting some kind of Magnum PI comeback movie, I would have completely believed you. This was wild. He even had like the Hawaiian shirt on. So the arrival of Tom Selleck became the hot topic for about an hour. And meanwhile, completely unnoticed, my future husband is slowly evolving into a national safety concern. And at some point, the cops show up. Because of course they do. We go downstairs to sweet talk the cops, and we're apologizing, we're being charming, and then we promise we'll turn down the music. So the cops leave, crisis is averted. Or so I thought. I'm heading up to the party. A girlfriend of mine is coming down the stairs at the same time. And she has that look in her face. You know the look. Like something terrible has happened, but it's also slightly funny look. And she goes, the guy that you brought, he's had a little accident. Okay, oh no, like, did he fall? Did he hurt himself? Is he okay? And she just goes, you should probably just go have a look. So, you know, I beetle up the stairs. I forgot to mention earlier that my flatmate, she's got this beautiful chiminea on the rooftop patio. Now, if you don't know what a chiminea is, it is basically a large terracotta outdoor fireplace. Tall, heavy, decorative, and functional. Well, was functional. Because it's not anymore. Because when I walk upstairs, this chiminea is no longer a chiminea. It is now a pile of rubble. Absolute devastation. Not cracked, not chipped, destroyed. It looked like archaeologists should have been dusting it off with tiny little brushes. And standing nearby, somehow completely unharmed, was the 24-year-old human wrecking ball that I invited to the event. Turns out he had fallen directly into it. Now, to his credit, he was fine, The chiminea, however, died at the scene. So we just sort of moved the terracotta debris over to the side and carried on with the evening, which in hindsight might say something concerning about all of us. Eventually, people start leaving. One by one, everybody heads home, except for one final surviving party participant, the chiminea destroyer himself. Now, by this point, it was around 2 a.m., and despite having physically assaulted the patio decor earlier in the evening, this man is still participating in one for the ditch. So we're standing outside having one of those late night, semi-romantic conversations people have when they're young, exhausted, and full of terrible decision-making confidence. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, this guy projectile vomits over the balcony's railing, directly onto the bushes the police had been standing in earlier, which honestly felt karmic. So now I'm in caretaker mode. I get him the water. I'm trying to sober him up. He says he needs to use the bathroom. Fine. At this point, I'm running an emergency shelter here. So after a while, I realize he's been in there for a while. So knock, knock, you okay? I walk in, fully asleep, on the floor, beside the toilet. Honestly, the position of his body looked less like a drunk guy sleeping and more like a crime scene chalk outline waiting to happen. Like at any moment, I expected those cops from earlier to come back and start asking me questions. And this was when you learn something very important about women. Because instead of leaving him there and reconsidering my life choices, I decided to make him comfortable. I took some rolls of toilet paper, made him a little pillow, got him a blanket, tucked him in beside the toilet like a drunken koala. And there he slept. Now, if the story ended there, it would be a cautionary tale. A beautiful Vancouver summer disaster. A warning from the universe. But no, because years later, that man became my husband. And we have a child together. And in his defense, because fairness matters, he was also an incredibly talented carpenter at the time, and still is. And since the chiminea had been imported directly from Mexico and was not exactly easy to replace, he eventually built these beautiful custom benches and a table. So in the end, it all worked out. And honestly, a man who can build things is very dangerous. Because somewhere between the destroyed patio decor and the handcrafted rooftop furniture, the emotional math started mathing. A man who can make things is very hard to let go of. Modern dating. Less romance, more piles of rubble, projectile vomiting, and a man sleeping beside your toilet like a drunken koala. But sometimes the guy who breaks things also knows how to rebuild them. Stay safe out there. And remember, DIY energy can be dangerous. Love you, okay? Bye!